The Treasurer Josh Frydenberg is with me now from Canberra. Treasurer, let me start with a question in your capacity as a member of the National Security Committee of Cabinet. Why is the current decision not to close Australia's borders or to cancel mass events?
Well, as you know, when it comes to travel restrictions, Leigh, we've moved ahead of the rest of the world in putting in place restrictions on travel from China, from Iran, from South Korea and also from Italy. The best possible medical advice to us is that those travel restrictions should stay in place, but they shouldn't be extended to other countries, including to broader Europe. So we'll continue to take the best possible advice. When it comes to mass gatherings, again, we take the advice of the Chief Medical Officer at both the federal level but also at the state level, and that advice has not been forthcoming. Of course, states can take their own decisions, but right now the advice is not to avoid those mass gatherings. Well,
you're a Victorian MP. Do you think that the Grand Prix in Melbourne should go ahead this weekend given the risks?
Well, again, I come back to the medical advice, and I'd say just as the federal government has stuck to the medical advice and implemented its recommendations, so too the Australian people should follow the best possible medical advice from our chief medical officers. And right now, they say when it comes to an event like the Grand Prix, that people should go along. Until a decision is taken differently, either by the medical officers or by the state government, then people should do that.
Given how quickly this situation is evolving, is it possible that the stimulus package you've announced today could be the first of a number of them for the Australian economy?
Well, this is a very substantial package, and it's obviously in response to a pretty significant economic impact. These measures, and as you referred in the opening to your packages, at $17.6 billion, $11 billion of which is actually before June 30. So the money is overwhelmingly front-loaded. Now, we'll continue to maintain a watching brief. We're getting additional information from the ABS. We're talking to the banks about getting access to some of their real-time data, and we'll monitor the impact of this stimulus package. But of course, the budget is in 8 weeks' time, and the coronavirus is not going away, so we'll continue to do what is necessary to support the Australian economy. You
mentioned the budget. You've made these measures temporary, so they're not baked into the budget. But isn't this a time to use the budget to also make some structural changes? For example, bringing forward your planned income tax cuts across all brackets?
Well, again, we've shown our mettle when it comes to reducing taxes. We've passed through the Parliament over $300 billion.
I didn't ask what you've done, I've asked about what you might do.
Yeah, but in terms of what we announced today, there is substantial incentives through the tax system for businesses to invest. That continues to be a priority for us. But the Prime Minister set out very clearly, Leigh, what are our priorities and what are our principles when it comes to our stimulus package, and that is that the actual initiatives are targeted, that they're temporary, and that they're also proportionate. I think we did that today.
But that doesn't address my question, which is, shouldn't the budget be used to make some structural changes that can help the country's fiscal position going forward?
Well, we continue to undertake structural reform, and that includes our tax legislation that passed through the Parliament. But today's announcements have pretty substantial
You're still not addressing,
changes.
Sorry, Treasurer, what I'm asking.
Well, in terms of what comes forward in the budget, you'll have to switch on in May for that outcome. But, you know, we continue to look for options and policies that will strengthen the Australian economy. But, Leigh, we have done the hard yards over the last 6.5 years to bring the budget back into balance, which has given us now the flexibility to use this financial firepower at a time when it's needed most.
You'll only be able to tell in hindsight if you've made the right decision about the size of today's stimulus package and the way the money's directed. Will its success be judged on whether or not Australia avoids recession?
Well, we've taken the best advice from Treasury, and what we'll see is $11 billion go into the economy before June the 30th. That's over 2% of GDP.
But how do you judge the success of it, Treasurer?
Well, how I judge the success of it is that it supports the Australian economy. It keeps people in a job, and it keeps businesses in business. And that's why our measures are designed, for example, to support the cash flow of small and medium-sized businesses and to support apprentices. Now, as for what actually occurs in the June quarter and the real economic impact of the coronavirus, the Reserve Bank has said, and so has Treasury, that is too early to tell. The spread of the coronavirus continues to evolve. There are new challenges every day. But what Treasury have advised me is that our package of measures could contribute 1.5% to GDP growth in that June quarter. Now, that is a significant and substantial impact reflecting the weight of money that is going into the economy.
Last year, you were claiming credit for a surplus that you'd not yet delivered, saying the budget was back in black. You were warned at the time that global events could derail that prospect, which they now have. What does your premature rush to claim credit for a phantom surplus say about your political maturity and judgment?
Well, we took the best possible advice and based on the forecasts at the time, and we have delivered a balanced budget. And as for a surplus, well, we've made it very clear, and the Prime Minister made that very clear today, and we've now taken these major spending decisions, and the surplus won't arrive in 1920 as a result of some of these circumstances we've seen.
But Treasurer, you claimed credit for something that you hadn't yet delivered, and I'm just wondering why you did that when at the time you were warned that events could derail it, and they have.
Well, we made our presentation based on the forecasts at the time, and clearly when it comes to the fires, the flood, the extended drought, and now the coronavirus, the economy has been hit by a number of external economic shocks that have been beyond our control. But when
Treasurer,
it comes to our response, we can control that.
Sorry to interrupt you there. You say, these external shocks, you couldn't have seen them coming. Treasury budget papers did warn about this kind of thing. I want to play our audience something from around the time of the budget last year. But like any projection, your ability to deliver that $7 billion surplus is reliant on factors that are outside your control. It might not happen.
No, it will happen, and it's the product of bringing the spending under control.
There might be a collapse in China. There might be another terrible drought. Then you might have to write down the NBN. Things can happen that could have prevent you actually achieving this.
Well, this is not a wafer-thin surplus. This is a very significant surplus.
You did know things could happen.
Well, we maintained that those were the forecasts at the time. We were pretty conservative when it came to, for example, our commodity price assumptions. They're even tracking below today. The prices are above today what we actually forecast back then. But what we could not foresee, and what you couldn't foresee, and what the global economy could not foresee, was this one-in-a-century event, namely the spread of the coronavirus, which is putting the shutters up on the global economy.
Treasury had a very busy day today. You've got some busy ones ahead. Thanks for making time to speak to our audience.
Always good to be with you.
Hi, I'm Leigh Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 730's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.